In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a potential major snowstorm in the eastern states, as well as more sustained cold than we've seen all winter long, and possibly more than we've seen over the past few winters. Real quickly, let's talk about my consulting company, Prestige Weather. We're closing out an amazing year with so many happy customers. If you're looking for more than the generic hourly or daily forecasts that can be so frustrating and very broad, look no further than Prestige Weather. We help out individuals and businesses alike. If you're an individual looking for better, more accurate, and direct weather information, be sure to subscribe to our standard package. That's only $4.99 a month. You get early access to direct weather, seasonal, and monthly forecasts, also weekly one-on-one calls with us talking about the weather, and regional forecasts catered to your area. If you're a business, organization, or event manager, be sure to email us at prestigeweather@gmail.com or use the sign-up sheet on our website business section. We would love to work with you. We've been helping out so many businesses, organizations, and events just like yours plan for the weather ahead. We offer consulting calls, texts, and emails catered to your exact location of need. We will be on standby during your job or event and give you updates from start to finish. We also offer long-range, medium-range, and short-range forecasts. We can help with rainfall and snowfall forecasts, plus the timing of onset and ending, which is so important. We pride ourselves on being highly flexible, and we're always willing to deliver on your specific needs. Put a meteorologist in your pocket so you no longer have to guess what the weather will do. Now, as we just dive into things, we're going to be taking a look here first off at Christmas Eve today on Sunday, December 24th. We do have a 1,005 millibar low pressure center set up over Nebraska and Kansas, with some snowfall beginning to take place throughout the Dakotas, here into Minnesota, down through Nebraska, portions of Kansas, Colorado, and even Wyoming there. We do see that this storm does have a pretty substantial cold front underneath it, and this is featuring thunderstorms and showers along it. Very typical stuff. And actually, if we were to take a look at it, we have our low here, warm front all the way up here, and then cold front down below, and that's what's allowing for this warm air to stretch up the eastern states for Christmas Eve into Christmas Day tomorrow. We're just going to take a look at that, but things are very mild throughout the Christmas time here for the next few days. It's really the 28th when we see this big pattern change happen. Here's the jet stream here by Monday afternoon here on Christmas Day. And we can see that this is surging warmth up the eastern states, like I mentioned earlier. I've had a lot of people, on my videos, because obviously we're talking about cold and snow. They're saying there's no way it's going to be mild on Christmas, but we're not talking about Christmas for that cold and snow. We're talking about after New Year mostly, but really after the 28th is when things are going to start to really cool down. But it's January 1st and beyond when things look really, really wintry. Now, as we keep going, well, I want to tell you real quick, it's going to be thunderstorms and showers throughout this area. Snowfall potentially for Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas there on Christmas Day. Now, as we move into Boxing Day on December 26th, we can see that there's still snowfall occurring throughout the northern plains. We see some precipitation now moving up the East Coast as a result of all of this activity. And as we reach towards Monday, we see that this actually does form into a coastal low, 1,001 here off the mid-Atlantic. Not a major nor'easter like what we've been seeing, but it is a nor'easter. It's just on the more minor side of things compared to the last two that we've seen in the month of December. Your jet stream now is doing something like this. So we see definitely that pattern change is incoming as we have cold air filling in this trough. Warm air surging northward here out west, and this is just going to continue to move eastward once this storm moves out. And as you can see by the 28th here of the afternoon, we see that taking place, and especially here by the 29th, we have a pretty substantial ridge for a lot of the west, and then a really significant trough in the east, bringing slightly below normal temperatures. The space of this one is substantial. The intensity isn't quite Arctic here on Friday the 29th. Now I want to keep going because as we reach into the 30th here, you can see that there is deeper cold air moving in. Meanwhile, we do have a pretty nasty storm moving into the northwest here for portions of California, Nevada, and Oregon, especially there, bringing some snowfall, especially in those mountainous regions. It's as we reach the 31st here on Sunday that we can see there is a trough primed and ready to move into the eastern states. This is diving cold air here And this is kind of going to just rotate around. So we're going to see this move into the eastern states here over the coming days after this. We see that beginning to take place here on the 1st into the 2nd. But look at what we have here. We have a storm forming along all of this, 1004 right here, warm front up here, cold front down here. We're going to see the cold air fill in. We see snowfall on the western end of things here. It's going to be a nasty storm. If it occurs like this, it'll be a very mixed precipitation storm. A lot of areas starting as rainfall and switching over to heavy snowfall at the end. And as we can see, it transitions offshore very quickly. Now a 994 millibar low pressure center offshore of New Jersey. And we see a lot of interior snowfall taking place by this point. Very substantial heavy snowfall. If this is the case, we've seen this model show storms as far south as this. And we've seen them show storms as far north as what we saw here. That was a terrible L. We saw it kind of just transfer here, and it's going to move up the coast from there. So obviously this and this is pretty substantial differences. We're talking hundreds of miles. But the real fact of the matter here is that we've consistently seen the European and now also the GFS model, which we'll take a look at in a minute, show a snowstorm for somewhere during this time frame. So the timing and the fact that there will be a storm is what we're more confident in. The location has been bouncing around from north to south to east to west. We've seen massive changes from run to run, and that has stayed the case. So we're going to continue to stand by that until we have any sort of really sure thing outlooks here where we feel confident in the location. Now there's a 978 millibar low pressure center offshore of Boston by this point on the morning of Wednesday, January 3rd. And this brings heavy snowfall to New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and even maybe portions of Rhode Island. Definitely bombing out offshore. This would be a very massive storm, especially for New England if it does take place like this. But again, that location has been jumping all over the place. There's no confidence in the location at this point. I mean, this can really move around from this point forward. So I don't want to let anybody feel like I'm telling you that, we feel confident in the storm happening exactly this way, because we're certainly not. There's a lot of room for this to move around, and we've seen it as far south, again, as bringing snowfall to the deep south and southeast more like. And now in this run, we're seeing mostly the Ohio Valley into New England. Seeing the snowfall. So there's definitely a wide variety of options here. Now let's take a look at your GFS model. I want to move past kind of the next few days, and I want to move to the new year. We see everything happen the same, except on the 29th into the 30th, we do actually have a 1,000 millibar low pressure center right near New York City, bringing light to moderate snowfall to the interior eastern states. So maybe a more minor to moderate snowstorm happening there at the end of December. Would be a little bit more minor, of course. And then we get the colder air moving in, about 1,006 millibar low pressure center happening here near Long Island. This is right around the time frame that the European model has a much more major snowstorm. But I mentioned this yesterday, and I'm going to mention it again. The GFS model has a well-known southeast bias with these storms, where it shows the storms further southeast than it should. And there is room for this to trend northward if this is, in fact, the way the storm ends up happening. But again, there's a very wide variety of options. But we can see here by the 4th, we get some interesting activity. 1,003 millibar low pressure center developing over Louisiana. And then we see snowfall for Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas taking place as we keep going. We see by January 4th on Thursday, we see the Ohio Valley into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast seeing the snowfall, with our low located over Virginia and North Carolina as a 998. We see that it drops in pressure by the time we're reaching about 8 p.m. there on Thursday the 4th, near kind of the Rhode Island area. And we see a heavier bout of snowfall for areas in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and even into Maine. As we keep moving on, we see that storm comes to an end, and we get a very, very deep Arctic air mass. Now, this one is very intense and very wide stretching. So definitely this would impact millions and millions and millions of people. I'm sure more than half the US population would be impacted by this system. And I just want to transition and take a look at the temperature anomalies real quickly on this model before we break down our normal things that we break down. And we can see that there is 10 to 15 degree below normal temperatures in the greens here. And within this purplish blue, it's a little bit of a different shade, but in this area, we're dealing with 15 to 25 degrees below normal. So a very, very significant departure from what's typical. We see that move in, and it gets even more intense. Look at Tennessee and Kentucky here. These magentas are 25 to 35 degrees below normal. So certainly looking at a very, very substantial cold air mass if that continues to be the case according to this model. Now, as we keep going with that, we can see that we do actually get a couple more storm systems moving through. This one definitely has some potential to do something later down the road. It's definitely looking like a more active, colder pattern here in the east, regardless of which of these two models you take a look at. Now, the total precipitation is clear. Northwest sees some activity. We also see this storm around Christmas, so the next couple of days impacting these areas. And then after that, the activity switches to the eastern states, moving straight from the deeper south and Gulf up the east coast. Definitely very, very interesting. Total snowfall here. We get a lot here over the course of Christmas for the northern plains. Obviously a lot for the mountainous west. And then this eastern storm, this doesn't even encapsulate the entire storm here, but this shows us the first half of it, and anywhere in the grays is a dusting, if anything. Blues are 2 to 6 inches, purples are 6 to 10, and then your pinks like we see here for West Virginia, New York, and Pennsylvania, and then all of New England, basically. We are seeing 10 to 20 inches of snowfall, so this would obviously be a very, very substantial snowstorm, over a foot of snowfall if it did occur, exactly how this European model shows it. Now, the European ensemble model, I want to just show you how much support we really have. Again, we see this colder air mass around the 28th, 29th, where we have this going on with our jet stream, so obviously a very substantial pattern. Warmer air surging in the west, colder air really diving in the east, and that all starts again on the 28th, 29th. So before that, very mild. After the 28th, very, very cold compared to normal is the expectation. Now, I want to also note this is the European ensemble model. It's different than your European model. We actually see it have agreement with your GFS model, as it shows a 998 millibar low pressure center offshore of New England. And we have precipitation perhaps for the mid-Atlantic into the northeast with that. So there is still some potential around the 29th through the 31st time frame for somewhat of a winter storm here in the northeast, and we're going to be watching that very closely. So that's threat number one. We see that one move out. The cold stays, though, and that's what really leads to the potential, because by the time we're reaching that kind of second, third, fourth time frame, again, we still have that cold setup in the east. Here's your northern jet, and then I'm going to actually do it in green here, where we see the precipitation moving, but we see that the storms are moving right along that here. And this is going to lead towards snowfall possibilities everywhere north of this black line, so especially here for these areas, this is where we're watching for that potential snowfall around the, again, second, fourth through the fifth time frame. And then later on, as we move towards the 7th, 8th time frame, I've also seen models trending at some activity in this time frame. Again, your northern jet, I'm just going to point it out once more, but we see it diving in from the east. So just like this, something like that, and we get a really, really strong storm kind of look here throughout, again, the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and into the northeast. So definitely this is a time frame to watch as well. This is your third threat on this ensemble model run. So through the first week of January, from now to the first week of January, we see 3 potential snowstorm threats along the eastern states. So certainly looking very active. Here's your GFS ensemble model. We just want to take a look at this as well, as we do get great agreement between this and the GFS model and even the European ensemble model, because your European model also had this storm look. It also had the northern jet diving in the east. So with these things combined, it really leads towards this potential snowfall in this area during that 28th to 30th time frame. Again, once we move to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, this model, again, has a southeast bias, but we do see some chance along the eastern states. We're not getting as much agreement here, but we do see some blue popping up in there, as you can see, as that storm system moves by offshore. It's just a little bit further southeast. Now, as we move towards that kind of 7th, 8th, 9th time frame, look at the look. Right here on the 7th, again, your northern jet diving into the east still by this point, a little too north. Something like this is what we're seeing here. And then we get this snowfall look throughout the mid-Atlantic, the northeast here, and then even down into the deeper south, southeast areas for the southern Appalachian Mountains. We continue to look a little bit snowy. As you can see, all the way by the 9th, 10th time frame, we still have this model indicating that some of its members are showing snowfall in this Great Lakes and Northeast area, which is going to be something to watch. So exponentially more wintry as we move towards January compared to December. And, you know, a lot of people during this El Nino season that we're seeing here expected things to start off kind of mild. And that's what, of course, what we've seen during December. But things look to flip in a massive way here during the final days of December. And that's going to pay dividends into the month of January for cold and snow lovers. Definitely something to watch. Definitely something that I'm going to be paying attention to daily. And if you would like to as well, be sure to subscribe, as we do upload every single day. And we're going to be keeping track of all of these things as we move into the month of January. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.